Hello, I'm Bishop Randall Drake, New Horizons Ministries, and here we are in session 8 of The Real Stuff. Hope that you have enjoyed all of these sessions and that you will enjoy this one. I jokingly have made my comment about baby dedications, weddings, and funerals, really important times and events in people's lives. Or as I like to call those three, it's the hatch, match, and dispatch part of ministry. The truth of it is, these three things, baby dedication, wedding, and now funeral, these are really important. These are events in people's lives, and as ministers, it's important that we get them right. Let me give you a quick little story, an anecdote on funerals. A young minister in his first pastorate called his college professor from the seminary and called and said, "You told me I could call you at any time. If I had a question, I have a question. I need to talk with you about a funeral." And the professor said, "Well, why are you needing to talk to me about a funeral? You took the class, you got an A, you did great. Why would you need to talk to me about a funeral?" He said, "Because this guy's actually dead." The truth of it is one thing to go to a funeral, to sit at a funeral, to participate, even if you've had a mom or dad, a spouse, a child, a relative die, and you have been to funeral services. It is one thing to attend a funeral. It is another thing to do the ministry and the mourning and all that goes with the death of someone. Funerals are not just about that one service. A funeral ministry is really about how do we lovingly care for those who are grieving, those who are mourning. Funerals really are not for the dead. They're really for the living. They're for those of us who attend and we recognize this person who has passed and what that person did in our lives. It's about honoring and respecting. So to be quite honest with you, funeral services are not even that much always about the person who's died, as much as it's about helping those in the service to grieve, to mourn with hope, to have the comfort of the Holy Spirit. Funeral ministry. You should have a few pieces of paper. You've got the funeral ministry with 13 different things that are on it. A funeral message, this is what I use for almost all of the funerals that I do, and then a funeral service, an order of the service itself. Those you should have printed off and ready to go so that you can follow along with me during this time. As soon as you hear of a person's death, you need to contact a family member. You need to convey your condolences, let them know you are there if they need anything. As ministers, this is an important ministry and service in our lives. Second, you need to arrange a time to meet with the family, offer assistance with the service, preparations, food, meeting at the funeral home. I have actually gone to the funeral home when the family was making those preparations sometimes, partly because it was an outside person, if you would, there to assist them, just to help them, to bring maybe some calm or peace if needed, or just support. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just show up and be quiet. The best thing you can do is just be there. They know you're there then, and that you love them and you care for them. That's part of ministry. It's part of service. With the funeral, you talk to the family, whatever you can do. If they say, "No, we're good, we're going to be fine," don't be offended. Let them deal with whatever they do. If you need me, I will be glad to meet with you and doing the service. They could want you to be part of the service. They may not want you to be a part, whatever you need to do. If you're a minister and not the pastor, then you're just offering your assistance, of course. If you're the pastor, you're letting them know the church is available, whatever we can do. You're giving those kinds of comments to them and information. And listen. People do very interesting things at emotional times. And they say things that you may need to pick up on before you get with everyone. And interestingly enough, sometimes we have to be the buffers in volatile situations. Maybe there's unresolved conflict in this family. There's issues. You may just need to be the one who's there. Number 3, if the family wants you to conduct the service, then often meet with the family at the funeral home when they plan to go, they go to plan the service, make decisions, but you don't have to be at the funeral home itself. Then set a time, number 4, to meet with the family to gather the funeral information and stories. I am very thankful funerals have changed over the years. I remember it used to be we went to funerals and we tried to see who could look like they had been weaned on persimmon juice. Who could look the sourest? Who could be the most because to laugh or smile for some reason was seen as irreverence. It was seen as not being Christian. It was being frivolous, whatever it was. I am so thankful times have changed. I am very thankful that we now can have memorial services, we can have funeral services where we share stories and laughter. We share that person's life. It's a memorial. It's talking about them, thinking about how they affected us. And family stories really are good with that. I always try to get with family members and I encourage them to do something. I encourage them to write down. Now, if they have bad penmanship, ask them to type it and print it off on a computer. But I ask them to consider writing out a little short story. Now, some people get the idea that a short story is 5 pages long. That is not a short story. That is the beginning of a novel. They need to do something brief, just something they remember about the person. I've even encouraged family members to consider this, especially large families. I would say, why don't you and your brothers and sisters and spouses and the children, which would be maybe grandchildren of this one that has died, whatever the case is, what one word would you use to describe grandpa or grandma or mom or dad? What's a word? And what's interesting is how that those words come to people and they'll share this word or this word. And then you take all of those from them, put them all together, and you share that within the funeral service. It really is a moving and a hope-filled time because they're remembering the person. Meet with them. If there's stories and things, let them do. Family members do not always do the best at relating stories and giving stories, to be quite honest, during the service. They get very emotional. You can be a third party who may not have that complete emotional tie, and you're able then to read the stories, share them, and bring some smiles and bring some comfort to the family. All right, as you prepare, then put those together for the funeral service itself. Now, the 5th thing, you're preparing the message and service. I've given to you what I normally use for a funeral message. I tend to use mostly the same message over and over, to be quite honest, with some variation. The reason is after years of doing this, I feel like there are very specific scriptures, certain things that I think are important. But I also try to find out, did the person who's passed away, the deceased, did that person have a favorite scripture or 2 or 3 scriptures? Sometimes they will actually give you the Bible to hold, and you will have been able to look through it, and you can see some things that are marked. That's a wonderful part of the funeral message itself. It's something for the family that's important. Make sure musicians are contacted, the sound personnel, they know their songs, you work out the arrangements, decide on flowers or presentations from the church. A lot of times the church doesn't do flowers or plants or something because the church has provided the meal or something like that for the family. Get an outline to the funeral home. Here's kind of an outline here. It's on one of your pages that you would have already printed off and got ready. That's just a basic outline. A lot of times videos are done now. Sometimes family remarks, where I've got that listed after the obituary, that could be also where those stories are shared. Now, there could be family members who do want to do that. That's fine. That is a thing that you all just work out together, okay? Not saying you shouldn't have family members. Sometimes it's been really good. My mom passed away. My brother and I, we did all of those family things. We read all of those. That was our mom. We wanted to read them from all members of the family. And so it worked out really well. Different things, different people do different kinds of things. Be sure to remember it's a time that the family's always going to remember. I promise you, they will not remember all your sermons. They will remember how you handled Uncle Bob's funeral. Important thing here. So make sure you do the right things. Handle the funeral well, but also these preparations, okay? Write an outline of your message. You mark your scriptures, go over the stories with the family again. Make sure you have all the names correct in the stories. Walk all through that. And then decide something that's very important. Talk to the family about the close of the service, the beginning of service and the close, prior to the service, after the service. Here's why. Some people want to have the open casket at the end of the service and people file by, greeting family, whatever, and walk. They pay their respects. I have actually tried to encourage families to do something different, to be honest. That used to always be the way it was. You did the funeral service, casket's opened, everybody walks by. The problem I see with that is this. You're now dealing with people trying to hug or talk to people, and it starts bogging down as they're going. There also tends to be that there will be people who will really struggle with seeing that person for that last time now, and you're dealing with all kinds of things, to be honest. So I talk to the family and tell them, you're not being disrespectful to do this a different way. I recommend you consider a couple of things, and here are some ways. You may do it that way, perfectly fine. That's how they want to do it, that's their choice. Another way, the casket is at the front of the service, at the front of the church. Prior to the service, the casket is opened. People are allowed and told as they're coming in, they are told, the casket will not be opened at the close of the service. If you wish to pay respects, you'll need to go by now. In doing that, they can come by if they want to or not. But if they've come by, now it's before service, the family's not in there, they're back in another room waiting to come in and join. People can pay their respects and go on. Then the casket is closed, and when that is over, it is over. At the close of service, the casket goes out, you walking with them, pallbearers afterwards, family members, whatever, and you leave. Another option with that would be that people then are ushered out, family remains seated, doors are closed, casket is opened, and it's only the family who says the goodbye at that point. That's another option. So you have some things that you need to provide for families, because I've talked with families and they went, I didn't know we could do it that way. I thought we had to do it this other way. No, you can do what you want. Let's do the best for your family. For my family, when we closed the casket at the beginning of the service for my mom, when we did that, we were done. When we sang Amazing Grace at the end, we left on an upbeat time. She had finished her course. She had kept the faith. She was done. And when we walked out in victory for her life, knowing who she was. That's what we did. Again, every family is different, and you have to work with them as a minister. They get to make that choice, and you work with them. Remember that also you're going to stand at the end of a place, you're going to stand at the end of the casket so that you can be there in case needed, okay? So then, family hour. If they have a family hour at the funeral home, I encourage you to be there for that. In fact, to be quite honest, I kind of encourage you to be there for most of it. You are there to be able to minister. If they're doing a 2-hour family time, now if they do something and they just have viewing at a funeral home that's 5 hours or something, not necessary for you to be there the whole time. But if they do a family hour that's 1 or 2 hours, I recommend to you that you be there. Here's why. You might need to be there to talk to someone. You might find that somebody needs to make a decision on salvation because of this death. There are things that could be done. Plus, you also could go over those stories one more time with different family members individually, okay? And you offer prayer with the family. Just being there is important. Number 7, dealing with atheism or no knowledge if the person is saved or not, the person who has died. If the person, the deceased, had no public confession of faith or lived a Christian life, there are issues present. There are issues. It's a different kind of funeral service to me. I'm sometimes asked, someone I've known for a long time or a relative, aren't these the most difficult funerals to do? No, actually, these are the easy ones. These are the ones that I am rejoicing inside. I might be crying because I'm not going to get to see the person again on this earth. But guess what? These are a joyful time. They've finished the course. They've done what they were supposed to do. They've been singing I'll Fly Away. They've been singing about wonderful heaven. Now they're there. No, when someone is saved and they have made it home, those are not the most difficult. The most difficult are when you don't know if the person was saved or not. Those are the difficult ones. Because you want to offer hope to the family, but don't lie. Don't do something not right. Don't give false hope. Now, because we do not know what happened in the last moments of that person's life, you do not know what their spirit, that person's spirit, and God did. There could have been a salvation experience that you don't know. But you can make that comment, and I have done that. Though Uncle Bob never made a confession of faith publicly, then we are just knowing that he is in God's hands and that his spirit and God, there may have been a decision, there may have been something that was done in the last moments of his life we do not know. But we mourn with hope, and we also know this. Since we're not sure about Uncle Bob, you can be sure about you. And that it's important that you do that. I don't know that you have to give a full salvation message. I don't think that you have to necessarily prolong that, but I do think you're trying to let them know they can make that decision. Again, don't give false hope, but you can use this time to speak to the people that are there. Then finalize, number 8, you finalize your message and the service, make sure everything is good. Number 9, the funeral service yourself. Be there early. Please do not walk in 5 minutes before it's your time. This is not a show. You should be there. You need to be there while they're setting everything up. You need to be there to meet with the family. You would actually want to go. You could even greet people as they arrive. Make sure the checks on sound are done. Make sure the music's ready to go. Make sure that you have orders of service. All of that's done. Conduct the service with dignity and grace. Be personal. I have been to funeral services, and you have too. When you are sitting there thinking, that guy never met that man that died. He has no idea anything about him. You want to be personal. You want to do this the right way. I've actually done the services for people that I did not personally know. Something happened. I got a call from the funeral home, and they said, could you do this service? They did not have a pastor. They didn't have a church home. Yes. I met with those people, and I've had some of those people end up in my church. Why? Because I loved them. I took care of that service. I did what I could do. All right? Make it personal. Then also, you need to go and meet with the family before they come into the service, because you should have prayer with them. Then you come in, and as they come in, you have people to stand out of respect for the family. Number 10, following the service. Follow the protocol that you've already discussed with the funeral home, however you're going to end with the casket, with viewing, all of those things like that. Car procession. You need to make sure that you find out where you're going to be going to, get directions. You really ought to check with the funeral home before service starts and park your vehicle. Often you want to park right close to the hearse, to whatever's going, because you need to be close there so that when you get to the graveside, you're able to be one of the first ones out and ready to go. And also one of the things you want to do is, if you have recorded the service, consider the idea of making sure that the sound person has that so that they can get a recording of it or something like that if they want it. And then make sure that you're ready for the graveside service. By the way, graveside service, 5-10 minutes maximum. Maximum. You do not need to do a funeral again. You've already done all of that. It is about a couple of verses, maybe one verse. You might even sing the first verse of Amazing Grace or something like that out there for everybody to do. However you want to do that. But do not take 30, 45 minutes at the graveside when you've already had a 30 or 45-minute funeral service. Do the right things, okay? In the graveside, you keep it brief. Don't redo the funeral service. You close with prayer. If it's military, revisit with the family beforehand so that you understand how that's going to work. You will say something. The military people would come up. If there's taps being played, if they're presenting a flag, whatever's going on, make sure you're aware of that and be respectful. This is important to this family, all right? And honor that military personnel, that veteran, all right? Stay with the family as long as possible, but also remember, you don't have to stay there for a long time. Sometimes families actually want to stay until they see the body being lowered into the grave. It's never been something I needed to do with any of my relatives or close friends. I just didn't need to see that, but some families do. That's an important part of what they close with. Stay with them if need be, and it's perfectly fine for you to do that. This is about them, not you. And then also you might want to mention, if they've got a big floral spray, if you would, that's on there with roses and things like that, I remind people they might want to take one of the roses. They might want to take a flower or something from the graveside, from that. I promise you the deceased does not care if you take those flowers, okay? And I tell the family that, they usually smile, and I go, but you could take that, and some people like to press a rose, or they put it in something, they keep it. It's a memory, a little bit of time. Sometimes people put them in water, they have them at their house for a little while, and it's a time for them during the next week or whatever to just remember that person. And I tell them, you're welcome to do that. I always check with the family first to make sure they're okay with people taking, roses and things. Then after that, a meal. Sometimes if you do a morning service, you do a noon meal after the service. If you do an afternoon service, you often do a meal before the service. If you're a pastor, please offer that meal. That's an important thing. You may say, oh, good grief, we don't even really know these people that well, or they've got 40 people. Well, guess what? I promise you that investment and that ministry and that service is so important. And there are people in your church who will want to either make a dish or give money. I really, in this day and age with husbands and wives both working jobs, things like that, we found, when I was pastoring, we found that people were much more interested in just giving us $10 to help purchase fried chicken or ham or whatever was needed. They were willing, and they would rather give us the money so we could purchase whatever we needed to do rather than them making the dish and bringing it. However it works, but a meal is very, very important. It's an opportunity for that family to be in fellowship and to be able to be together. And I promise you, the church will be a beneficiary for the feelings that are done at that point with that family. Work it out with your women's ministries or whoever does those. Notify the family, let them know, and ask them for an idea of how many people. You don't want to think there's going to be 20 people and 50 do show up, or you're going to be going crazy, and you're going to be praying for a loaves and fishes experience to try to multiply all of that stuff. I also recommend that you keep gallons of corn, gallon of green beans, maybe a gallon of pork and beans or something. Whatever you need to do, keep some gallons of a couple of some of those types of things there, that if you don't get enough food and it looks like you're going to need more, you can open up a gallon of green beans or a gallon of corn or something quickly to be able to get that done so it's ready for the meal. Okay? Thank all of your ladies for the time and effort. Make provisions for the food to be delivered. And if there's leftovers, I would encourage you to consider the idea of having those kind of disposable plates, those disposable containers, so that you can take the food, put it in those, and then they take it with them, if you would, home. And then finally, make contact with the family at least one time per week for like maybe the next 4 weeks after the funeral. Send a card to the family. If the service is recorded, make sure that they receive a recording. Have others even check on it. So to let you know, that is the funeral time. Again, remember, this is about that family, not about you. Finally, 3 questions. Be sure to answer these questions and bring your written answers to the Equip class. Here we go. 1, what did you learn in this session about the topic that you previously didn't know? 2, What are 2 things that you will use from this session in your ministry? And finally, were there any points made in this session that you didn't agree with? And what would your suggestion be on that issue or subject? I hope that you've enjoyed all of these different sessions, and especially this one, number 8. This is a very special and important time, the funeral service. Because remember, the truth is, you're not there because of a death. You're really there because of a life that touched you, a life that touched others. And this is a way to give honor and glory to God. God bless you. I'm Bishop Randall Drake.